What do you really know about your investments and your financial advisor? Gary Sinderbrand, a veteran advisor and founder of Better Path Training, has spent decades helping both financial advisors and their clients get it right when it matters most. Gary pulls back the curtain on the advisory world to reveal the truths, the gaps, and the opportunities that most people never hear about, but absolutely should. It's about more than money. It's about legacy, trust, and making sure the people you care about are in the right hands. Welcome to If the Public Only Knew. Now here's your host, Gary Sinderbrand.
The eggheads at McKinsey just dropped a report on a subject that is near and dear to my heart. Titled it The Looming Advisor Shortage in U.S. Wealth Management. I agree with most of what they said. They got a lot of things right. They got a lot of things wrong as well. So let's take a few minutes and review what their thoughts are. And let me add my opinions. First thing, might surprise you to know that over the past, let's say 9 years, 10 years, there's been a compound annual growth rate in advisory-based revenues from $150 billion to $260 billion, 6.5% per year on advisory or fee-based business. The demand for fully advised relationships continues to go up, and McKinsey projects it could reach between 67 to 71 million by 2034, almost a 35% increase from 53 million where we sit today. Now, we got to contrast that against an aging workforce. About 38% of the current total advisors, roughly 110,000 warm bodies, representing 42% of industry assets, are probably going to retire in the next decade. That equates, if you do the math at about a 70 basis point, that equates to something along the lines of $14.5 trillion in assets that pretty much are going to transition from retiring advisors who spent a lifetime building those assets to younger financial advisors who have spent almost no time building those assets. And that's really where the problem arises. Increasing demand, 52% of advisors check that, 52% of investors sought holistic advice in 2023, up from 29% in just 2018. 80% now willing to pay a premium for human advice. Well, that makes a lot of sense because as you get older, things get more complicated. You want to spend more time focused on things that really matter instead of trying to figure out whether or not you should buy a municipal bond with a 5-year maturity and a 4-year duration or a 12-year duration and a 9-year maturity. Fun stuff. So where's that demand coming from? Well, we've got rising wealth across the entire U.S. population, particularly among millennials. Just look at what the equity markets have done in the past several years. And it's not hard to imagine that a lot of people are looking at that chunk of change and wondering, am I doing the right thing? Also, again, there's a growing willingness to pay for a real human being, not AI, not some sort of robo-investor or Robin Hood, but being able to talk to a human that actually understands who you are and what you want to do. Here's the problem. Most younger advisors that I can see completely lack the drive to be able to recreate the books that guys like me created and those of you that have been around for quite some time were able to create over the course of your career. It is a huge problem as things progress. So what do? Well, most of the folks that I've worked with at the major firms that are in vertical teams, what I find is that the senior advisor, let's assume they're doing $3 million on a pretty healthy asset base. They bring the junior advisor on board and immediately start to overcompensate them. So maybe the standard is somewhere between, let's say, 8 to 15%. Let's split the difference and call it 12%. So 12% of a $3 million book is $360,000 paid out at the team rate, which in this case for this advisor might be in the mid 40s. So let's say that this new advisor who hasn't brought in $1 of new business is all of a sudden making $125,000. And they recognize that the advisor they're working for, the senior advisor, basically is like a ticking clock. They're going to retire at some point. Junior advisor just needs to hang on, learn what they can, support the senior advisor in whatever non-productive way they both agree upon. And along the way, the senior advisor actually ends up increasing the junior advisor's compensation. And when it comes time to figure out how much they're going to pay them to leave the book behind, the senior advisor actually ends up taking a haircut because they've moved a lot of equity downhill to the junior advisor who A, has never earned it, B, could never build the book from scratch, and C, is about to inherit an asset that has got to be a dream come true. because they're going to pick up a book of clients, a lot of whom are elderly, a lot of whom will stay put for a while. And hopefully, if that junior advisor is smart enough, they're going to save as much money as they can because they never, ever grew to appreciate what it truly takes to build the kind of business their senior advisor just left them as they walked out the door. It's a problem across the industry. It's a problem for individual clients, which I'll comment on in another podcast. But in reality, it's a real problem for the retiring advisor. Just imagine a year or two after you leave your practice, you run into one of your former clients and very close friends who sheepishly comes up to you and says, I'm not sure how I tell you this, and I hope it doesn't impact you, but Charlie, the FA you left the book to, he's just not cutting it for me. And I just want you to know before we do it, we're going to be moving our business elsewhere. Now, you could take the attitude of, well, who cares? I got paid. I'm done. Charlie will take the hit, but that's not the case because you remember what it took to bring that client on board and how many times you counseled them through personal financial crises or market meltdowns or anything else. These people weren't just your clients. They were your close friends, and hopefully they still are. You have a duty to make certain that these people are well cared for and not just hand it off to someone that is pretty good at explaining Monte Carlo simulations and can tell you how to access TikTok videos. So why don't we consider something slightly different? Instead of overcompensating someone you believe can walk in your shoes, why don't we create an environment that they can actually demonstrate they can do that? And if you're not married yet, why don't we do it in kind of a survival of the fittest approach, almost Darwinian in nature? Work with your local management. Find some youngsters that make all the right noises but haven't proven anything yet. Then take a look at clients on your book that you haven't spoken with in quite some time. You know who they are. The ones you couldn't live without when you were first starting. The ones that you would open and basically promise anything you had to get that 50K or 100K. You haven't spoken with them in a long time. They've changed. You've changed. You've largely ignored them. So why don't we find some youngsters and maybe sprinkle 10 relationships each across 5 FAs that all make the right noises. Tell them they've got to go out and reprofile. Tell them they've got to go out and increase ROA. Hunt for some new AUM, and God forbid, maybe even solicit some referrals. At the end of a 3-month period or so, figure out the 4 that did the best and cut the 5th one off. You don't need to be in a team. You can get a joint production number. Happens all the time. The other 4, maybe you sprinkle a few more accounts their way. Go another 3 months. See who's winning. Rinse and repeat until you get down to 1 or 2 that really want the role. Let them demonstrate it. If that's the case and you want to bring them aboard, make them earn what they earn. Do not hand them cash. Perhaps at some point you can move that lower tier of your book that has the majority of your households and the least productivity completely to the younger advisor and give them an asymmetrical payout on what they can do on their own. Let them show up and earn it. It's not quite the fear we suffered when we started, but maybe it's the next best thing. As I talk to advisors on a daily basis and work with teams, one of the first things I need to focus on is what are the motivations? Why should a young advisor who's being grossly overpaid by their senior advisor, what's going to cause them to develop that fear of not being able to pay the rent or the light bill that myself and thousands of other senior advisors suffered when we first started? You can sit around and make believe it's not happening, or you can get busy and get moving. Right now, fully 1/3 of high net worth clients and ultra high net worth clients plan on checking out the minute their advisor does. They have no faith in the heir apparent, and there's no connectivity at all to those clients' next generations, because essentially you're basically keeping your young advisors shut in and hoping, osmosis, metamorphosis, some shamanism, they're going to figure out how to do what you did. Well, guess what? We had to figure it out the hard way. We graduated the school of hard knocks, and those of us that survived went on to build very, very profitable businesses that lasted over decades. Don't throw somebody the keys to your lifetime work until you know they're capable of taking it in the right direction. Thanks for listening. This is Gary Sinderbrand. You can find me at betterpathtraining.com or stay tuned to this podcast. More to come.
Thanks for checking out If the Public Only Knew with Gary Sinderbrand. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to follow the show and share it with another advisor, investor, or friend. For more on Gary or to check out any links mentioned in the episode, head to the show notes. We'll see you next time.